Well, hello there, beautiful friends. God bless you. I'm Teresa Lusk, host of The Teresa Lusk Show, and I have an exciting episode for you as always. I love to bring forth some people who can inspire you, encourage you, cause you to really think about your involvement in our society, our culture. I'm super excited about the next guest because I actually have a very personal slash professional tie with her, and I have my mentor from campaign school, Beth Cubriel. And Beth has just an amazing background. She's very inspiring for many women and men who are thinking about getting into politics. And that's one of the things we're going to discuss today. We're going to discuss the many variables that are involved in running for office. There are so many women that maybe don't think, and men, but we're definitely trying to inspire the women, but that don't believe that they're qualified to run for office. Maybe they don't believe they have the academic background, etc. So I want to encourage you to tune in and get ready to hear what Beth Cubriel has to say today, because we can't wait to hear all the amazing things she's going to share with us. So I'm going to invite her in. Hello, Beth. Welcome to the Teresa Lusk Show.
Hi, I'm happy to be here. I'm so excited.
Oh, thank you. Beth, besides the fact that she's my mentor, she is also a trailblazer. She's inspired conservative women to run for office, to lead boldly in politics. She has a decade of experience, really, and she's shaped legislative and political landscapes, serving as executive director of the Republican Party of Texas and working alongside some leaders such as Governor Greg Abbott, Representative Tony Gonzales, and many others. And I can tell you this, guys, I took a tour with her at the state capitol, Texas state capitol, and everybody knows Beth. That's all I can say. So, Beth, welcome to the program.
Great to be here. That was a fun day we had a few weeks ago, right before Thanksgiving. It was a lot of
It
fun.
was fun. It was fun. And I appreciate you greatly. Today's topic is really about empowering women to run. And so, first of all, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself? What do you want us to know? Because I want the everyday woman and even the professional woman. I want women of all levels and men, by the way, Beth, because there are some men who I promise you know a powerful woman, a woman who's well equipped, but maybe she doesn't know it. So I want people to know a little bit about your background. How did you end up in politics? Did you want to do this? And what do you do now?
Good questions. I got interested in politics actually when I was in high school, which is probably weird.
Oh.
I don't know why. I always have been interested in how, as a society, we decide how we're going to spend our collective dollars, whether it's on infrastructure or social services or military or um and at the time I don't think I even knew if I was conservative, liberal, Republican, Democrat. I was just kind of interested to learn more about it. And my parents had friends who were involved in the Republican Party, and they reached out to their friends and said, our daughter wants to get involved. She doesn't really know what she wants to do, but she is curious about the process. And so those ladies at the shout out to the Bay Area Republican women in Houston, they took me under their wing and got me involved. And it was great fun. They're wonderful ladies, and they hooked me up with a local campaign, and I ended up going there every afternoon after school to volunteer and made some really good friends and just learned a lot about the process and really enjoyed it. And then from there, when I went to college, was fortunate to go deliberately went to school in Austin at St. Edward's University and was able to take some internships at the Capitol. Ended up interning for the both in the Capitol for a female member from Mesquite, Elvira Reyna, um,
Mm.
and then also at the Texas Federation of Republican Women at their headquarters in Austin. So I, got a little bit of the legislative exposure, a little bit of the political exposure, um, and really enjoyed the political side more at the time.
Mhm.
So after college, I went on to work on some campaigns. I did a mayoral race in Houston, and met, just the some of my lifelong friends on that race, and then came back to Austin, worked for then Attorney General or then Supreme Court Justice John Cornyn's campaign for AG. He ran for Attorney General at a time when, you know, Republicans were not necessarily winning general elections statewide in Texas.
Mm,
That was in 1992. No, 1998. Um, and he beat General, gosh, what was his name? Maddox. Mad Dog Maddox was his name.
mm, wow.
And he was the underdog. He was third in a three-way primary when we started and ended up gutting it out in a runoff and winning that
Mm,
nomination and then winning in the general election when, every Republican won that November. And so from there, it just kind of took off. I fell in love with the political side of things and got back introduced into policy work at the AG's office when I worked as a legislative liaison for the Attorney General to the Texas legislature, and had some great legislative initiatives that we worked on for the AG's office at the time, and then kind of bounced back and forth between political and legislative for a while. And
mm,
now I am
mm.
working for a public relations firm in Austin and doing some political work, which is issue advocacy more than candidate focused, but I
Okay.
do have some candidate specific clients and then do a lot of volunteer work.
Wow. So there's been a consistent track. What about when somebody doesn't have the background, when they can't trace uh, their love or passion for politics like you did all the way from when you were in high school? I mean, first of all, the fact that you even knew that young at that age that you would want to do politics is 100% impressive. I mean, thank God for that. But how does somebody who doesn't have that history, how do they really even consider that they may be, um, qualified for a political run? Like, where does it start, Beth?
I know a ton of people, obviously, who work in the legislature and on political campaigns, and everybody's story of how they got involved is different. Some people get involved because it's a particular issue that motivates them, and they
Mm,
want to affect change. Maybe they're passionate about law enforcement issues, and so they get involved with the local candidate who um, is passionate about law enforcement. um, whatever your issue is, there's a way to get involved in the process to help change or maintain, right? Trying
mhm.
to think of what the big issues are right now, like school choice, for example, has been a hot button issue for the last few
Yeah.
legislative sessions. I know people who haven't been political at all until they, decided that they thought having school choice was important, or
Mm,
and so they get involved that way. Other
mhm,
people kind of fall into it and then they decide that they love it.
mm,
Maybe maybe they're just out of college and they're looking for a job and they happen to have like a neighbor who is newly elected to legislature and looking for interns, and they decide to take an internship.
mm.
And then they, kind of they just fall into it.
Sure.
And if you're a people person, if you I mean, if you like people, political campaigns are kind of the place to be, as is the
Mm,
legislature, because
mhm.
those offices are so busy all the time. If you're interested in, affecting change, whether it's, how the government spends your money or how they levy taxes or um, how they
Yeah.
regulate your business. Shelley
Mhm.
Luther's a great example. I don't think she was very political until COVID. And then
Right.
Once her business shut down, she decided that she needed to get involved, couldn't, and now she's going to be a member of the legislature. So,
Right, right.
that's the perfect example of
Hmm.
somebody just kind of, I don't want to say she fall into it. She, put herself out there,
Right,
but took a
right.
big risk. And so there's a number of
Sure.
ways to get involved.
Well, I think that's great because it lets you know that not everybody was naturally already, pursuing this. It wasn't something that's a natural desire. In fact, I would bet that a lot of the people who actually have ended up in politics probably hated politics to begin with, but the issues pushed them into it. I think this is where a lot of women are rising up. Funny thing is, I believe it was back in 2020 because of Trump. There's reports out there that because of President Trump, a lot of Democrat women started running. And I have some statistics here, some numbers actually that I want to share with our viewers so that they can see where we are. And this is, of course, this is not state. This is U.S. For the 18th. The Democrat and Republican women in the 118th U.S. Congress in 2024. So we can see how the numbers vary. And again, this is U.S., but I think it's a good, helpful example. So let's look at it. Democrat. And so there's 109 Democratic women serving across both chambers, representing 41% of all Democrats in Congress.
Wow.
Specifically, women make up 43% of the House Democrats and 31% of Senate Democrats. Impressive numbers.
Mm-hmm.
But now let's look at the Republican women. 44 Republican women in Congress, representing 16% of all Republicans. Within this group, women make up 16% of the House Republicans and 18% of Senate Republicans. The 35 Republican women in the House represent a historical high for the party. Imagine that. And that's a historical high.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm extremely passionate about this, Beth, because I want to see more women run. And, one of the things that I mentioned to you was as we were, discussing this interview was that sometimes conservatives hate identity politics. But the truth is, number one, I will never apologize for empowering a woman. I just think women need to be empowered. We do need to catch up to a lot of the discrepancies with numbers in so many different fields, et cetera. And I believe we are. I'm not going to say that we're not and that that we're still, et cetera. But I think we have equal ground now, but now we haven't caught up to some things. As you can see this, now, of course, we're talking about women against women, Democrat versus Republican. However, the numbers are still quite different. What do you think of this?
I don't know what to think about it. I mean, I wish there were more women who would run. I don't. We can speculate on why they're not running, or if they are running and just not winning primaries. That I don't know. Um, I think generally speaking, a lot of women carry. There's a perception that women carry a bigger burden of household and children
Yeah.
um, than our male counterparts.
Yes.
That's not true in my house.
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm
Right. But
lucky.
you might be but you might be somewhat of an exception. It's not the
Yeah,
norm.
I
Right.
don't want to throw my husband under the bus. That is
Of
not how
course,
it
of
is in
course.
our house.
Yeah.
He's definitely carries probably more of a burden of all of that than I do, to be honest. But I'm
Uh-huh.
very lucky. I don't know that that's the case. I know, growing up, my dad was and still is super involved in our lives. But I'll tell you, like, a lot of dads, you saw them on the weekends, but not necessarily like during the weekdays because
Right.
they're working long hours, which is
Right.
understandable. And so it seemed like the moms always took on more of the household roles. Um, so I don't know if,
Yeah.
women are intimidated because they don't think they have the time. Um, I don't know
I
why it
actually
is.
have
I
a
don't like it though. I think it'd be great.
yeah.
It's always great to have more women involved.
Right.
For a number of reasons. We offer kind of a unique perspective on, issues of healthcare or childcare or education, just
Yeah.
because, you know, as a whole, we tend to be the primary or the first decision maker in households on those
Right,
issues.
right. I absolutely agree. I actually have done media appearances on this particular topic, and I do believe it is because as conservative women, we have just kind of this is just how it goes. We learn to really prioritize the home, and that's not a bad thing. I don't think that's a bad thing at all. I actually
Somebody's got
believe
to
you
do
can.
it. Yeah.
That's right, right. And I think it's supposed to in many ways be that way where we do nurture our families, et cetera. I think you can do both though. And I know you have done both and you know and while I spent a whole lot of time at home, my family was always the priority. I also took care of ministry or business, et cetera, whichever way I was, whatever, you know, responsibilities I had to have. And so I do think that there is that does contribute to the difference. Um, I have a clip from former President Bill Clinton, and I think he has the most wonderful endorsement ever. So I wanted you to see this. It's actually quite refreshing to see. Let's see what he had to say here. It is really kind of enlightening.
Cultural battles we're fighting make it harder in some ways for a woman to win.
So you think it has more to do with party than gender?
No. Although I think it would probably be easier for a conservative Republican woman to win.
Wow. So he just, is that
I
not the
remember you
greatest
mentioning that
endorsement?
to me, and I was like, "What? He really said that?" That's
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's very entertaining. I think it's wonderful. And you know what? I think he nailed it. I think because he was talking about how we have all these cultural wars, and maybe he wasn't meaning the same thing, but he's right on it. There are cultural wars, wars against the traditional values of our nation. And I do think that's what a lot of the issues are today as to why President Trump is back in the White House. And I think that that's very important. So what are some challenges? And so, by the way, to me, this was one of the greatest clips we'll ever have because it encourages from a former Democrat president, by the way, who
Mm-hmm.
actually said that a Republican conservative woman would be more likely to win the White House. Hello, ladies. There's got to be somebody out there who's very well
Who wants? I nominate
qualified.
you, Teresa.
Hey,
Great.
thank you. I mean, you know, I honestly think it's a great idea that a conservative woman I've been waiting on and I know that we've had, I just don't think we've had the right woman. I'm all for the women, but it's got to be the right one. Otherwise, we're just playing identity politics. Did
Well,
you want to add something to that?
I do. I think I see where he's coming from. Um, if you look at the issues that really moved the needle this cycle, um, it sounds ridiculous, but boys and girls sports, it was a top issue. I know that the Democrats were counting on abortion being a big issue, and it was important to a lot of voters, but it's at the end of the day, it's not what turned people out. Um, I've got two girls, they both play sports, and they have not had boys on their sports teams, but we know people who've been affected by it. Um, I'm glad I live in a state where that's not going to happen, but not all states are
Yes,
that way. And it's
right.
just, to see a candidate for office not be able to define the difference between a man and a woman, how can you trust them to make a decision on anything else? And so I think
Yeah.
what President Clinton was alluding to, and he probably didn't want to say it out loud, is because Vice President Harris had to take that position on those types of issues, she's not going to win. Now,
Yeah.
if they were to nominate somebody more moderate, like they did with, Hillary's moderate on a lot of issues, and she came really close to winning. Um, I think if they had nominated somebody who was more palatable to middle of the road women, then the election could have been much different.
Yeah.
But the question remains, will either party be open to nominating somebody who's palatable to middle of the road voters? Because as we're seeing, you're getting, the Democrat Party is nominating candidates who are more farther to the left, and the Republican Party is nominating candidates who are farther to the right, and they're leaving out in the middle.
Right. Well, I think it's interesting though, because a lot of the people that, as you have seen and witnessed, President Trump is selecting for his cabinets, I don't think that they're all super right anyway.
Mhm.
So I think he is kind of bringing us back to the middle, which, as a super conservative, there's some things that I find positive in it. And you and I may not be on the same extreme of conservatism, and that's okay. But I just think it probably will be a little more in the middle for everybody, which might be a good thing for the nation. I don't know. You have the expertise in a lot of this back and forth. But talking about women,
Well, I don't want to interrupt you, but I do want to clarify. So I agree with you that Trump is not nominating people who are far right in some cases. I will also say that a lot of Trump's rhetoric is far right, but his policymaking is not always far right.
which is interesting that you're saying that, because I actually believe that. I actually really believe that. But a lot of people don't understand that, because most of the information they get is from the news, and they don't necessarily look at the policies. And this goes even for the left and the right, by the way. So looking back at women, this is really an exciting time. I think that here's something that I believe is going to happen, Beth, and see if you can contribute to this thought here, that because the Republicans have taken, because we have the trifecta, because of this, is there going to be, or is there already formulating some kind of movement now where a lot more women, Democrat women, really, progressive women, are preparing and gassing up to give it a go in 2 years and try to take back some of these positions? Do you think is that something that you think might be likely?
I think unless they're taking serious notes and introspection on why Democrats lost so badly this cycle, I mean, they can run all they want, but they're not going to win.
Well, sure. Yes, true. But I'm just wondering if the women, because we saw the surge of women in 2020, and the reports are because of President Trump, these liberal Democrat women said, that's enough, we're going to go for it, et cetera. And they did. This is where the numbers went up. I'm just wondering if this will actually reignite that. And now we see a colliding of conservative versus Democrat women running for these open seats.
So if you're talking about congressional seats, those races are all just, almost all of them are decided in the primary. So you're not really going to see, you're probably not going to see many races where you have a conservative woman running against a liberal woman in a heavily contested November election, because so many of these seats are decided in the primary. And so you may see cases where you have a moderate Democrat versus a liberal Democrat, or, in the more heavily Republican, a conservative Republican woman running against a more moderate Republican woman, and how those shake out. Obviously that all depends on the district, and, what's going into mailboxes and on TV, and who's getting endorsements and money and that sort of thing. But in terms of November elections, almost all of those congressional races, there's a handful of, think about it. In Texas, we have, out of our delegation, one seat that's competitive, has been competitive in November. And I think most of the states, kind of reflect that as well. But, hopefully, as we see more Democrat women be motivated to run, I hope more Republicans are also motivated to run. And,
Absolutely.
maybe they're not running head to head against each other, but
Yeah.
serving in Congress together.
That's good. I agree with you wholeheartedly. So let's talk about some challenges real quick that women face as they make this decision. What are some of the challenges that a woman faces, whether she's running for a state, or U.S. or local? Is there some kind of consistent theme that women face?
I think that the biggest hurdle is getting women to commit to run. Once they run, I think women generally enjoy. I think in the past, when I've looked at the numbers, Republican women who run in the November election enjoy a 2% bump over their male counterparts. For the most part. That's not always true, but generally speaking is true. There are some anomalies that happened this last cycle. It had more to do with like mail and distortion of voting records, mail, MAIL, not
Okay.
MALE,
Okay.
and distortion of voting records that, a handful of our really good Republican women in the House won't be returning, unfortunately. But if you look at, judges, for example, so where it's basically a name on the ballot, the Republican women get a 2-point bump over their male counterparts in the primary. And then that is true also in the general. Looking back on races where, for example, we lost, every judicial race in Harris County. Is it not this most recent presidential, but I think the year before that, or the 4 years before that. The only women, there was a cycle where the only judges that won in Harris County were the female judges that won in the general
Wow.
election. Yeah. And they won like by
Wow.
2 points. It was so close.
Okay.
So I think people get excited when women are running. I think the hurdle is getting them to commit to run. And, I can't tell you, I don't want to put out a blanket statement as to why. I mean, I've never run myself, so I'm a little bit of a hypocrite talking about how exciting it would be to get women to run, but I'm not
Sure.
putting myself out there. Because, like politics is ugly, and I've got
Yes.
kids, if I didn't have kids, maybe
Yes.
I would.
And that's what I was going to say, is that I think that part of the reason why more women don't run is the punches that they have to take. Most women don't like confrontation. They don't like the ugly. I don't think anybody does. But I think generally, and this is just a general statement, men typically can deal with that a little bit better. I mean, I'm a very forward, bold person. And the stuff that I put out, my female friends, they're just like, I can't believe you said that. I can't believe you did that. Oh my gosh. I mean, they almost want me to take it down. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. Somebody's got to be bold enough to say what needs to be said. And so I think that a lot of times it makes just even the idea of it, it makes some women uncomfortable. And I understand wanting to protect your family. You're right. You have to be ready for everybody to take the punches. And so I think that's important. So right now, for those of you who are watching, you're tuned in with Beth Cubriel. She is my mentor for my political campaign school. Beth has been very instrumental in just helping me with so many different resources. Took me down to the Texas State Capitol. We met a lot of great people, and she's been doing this for quite a bit of years, and she's just giving back her own thoughts on women running for office. So if you're watching and you want to ask a question, please go ahead and post it. We will definitely answer questions that come through. We want to hear your comments as well. Let us know if this is inspiring you, if this is making you, go, hey, maybe this is for me. Maybe I need to run for office. I think it's absolutely something that's exciting for people, or maybe you have somebody you think should run. I saw somebody posted on our social media. They were like, hey, if you would like to run for city council or school board, let us know, and contact us, etc. So sometimes it's just as easy as that, somebody asking you. What are some of the most exciting things, do you think, for women once they get into office? Like, why is that such a big deal? Oh.
once they get into office.
Mhm.
I don't know, because I've never served as a Republican woman in
Mhm.
office or as a woman in office. The women who I do know that have served, I think it's exciting for them that they're getting to be a part of the decision making process. Um, outside of their business or their home or their family. They get to take care of their community.
Mm.
I think, it's exciting for them to offer a unique perspective on issues that have generally been decided by men. If you
Mhm.
look at just the breakdown of the legislatures or Congress over, the history of our democracy. It's male dominated, and they're making decisions on, healthcare and education and taking care of our seniors when most of that work, aging parents tend to fall on the responsibility of the
Yeah.
female members of the family. And
Yeah.
so I think it's nice that they get to be in the room making those
Mhm.
kinds of important decisions.
That's good. I think if I just kind of also just kind of piggyback on what you're saying, I love what you're saying because I think that a lot of times we see, just speaking as for myself, we tend to look at the obstacles, the challenges that something might bring, but I really like the perspective that I feel like you've kind of said this, contributing to shaping whether it's policy, et cetera, the change in our nation. Women, for those of you who are watching and those of you who will tune in after this broadcast, can I tell you that your voice is necessary? It's needed, especially in this time where there is a culture war for so many of the good American founding principles that got our nation going strong. And if you are a conservative woman, it's important for you to start considering: is this something that I'm supposed to do? Maybe you're not going to jump to the state legislature. Maybe you want to start with city council or school board. And can I just tell you something? Maybe that's not where you want to start. Maybe you do want to go to the legislature. Maybe the state legislature. Maybe you want to go higher. I'm all for go where you really see open doors. Educate yourself, watch videos. I listen, for a hobby, I read and watch stuff constantly, Beth. Like, I'm always reading something. I'm reading a book on civics and government right now, just for fun, just to learn, and it's really, really inspiring because you really go back to the roots of our nation and you're able to have conversations and really sometimes debates, and I'm okay with that, on the Constitution or things of that nature. So I think it's so important for women to understand that we do come from a different place. We bring something different that the men don't. They bring great things to the table as well. We're not man bashing, but women also have an ability to speak into certain things because we've been experiencing them, not just making decisions from far away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I would also say, don't not run because you're afraid to lose.
Ooh.
Because everybody I know who's run for office that has not won, I've asked them, do you regret running? And not one
Mm.
of them has said no. They feel like everybody has come away with something positive. Maybe they affected the debate in the race. And so maybe they didn't
Mm.
win the race, but some issues that they really care about got some attention, and it got the attention of the person who eventually did win. Others have said that they really enjoyed, they've made some great contacts that have enabled them to advocate for their issues, maybe not
Mm.
as the elected officer, but from just an advocacy background.
Mhm.
It's also given them more appreciation for the process. And then, some of them go on to run again and, eventually win. Or maybe they don't ever run again, but they felt like they had accomplished something just by being on the platform and forcing a debate in public forum.
I love what you said because you're saying do not be afraid to run just because you might lose or you might not win, however you want to phrase it. I mean, it's the same conclusion. I love that. There is actually a statistic, Beth, and I wish I could remember who the resource is, but there's a statistic out there that says that women who run and lose the first time, they usually do not run again. Like the numbers are really low. And when I heard that number, I think I heard it in campaign school, actually, I was devastated. I wanted to come out of my skin and go, oh my gosh. Now, to be fair, I've not run before. So I don't, sometimes we don't understand what people go through. But in all seriousness, the statistics, again, another number, is that it typically takes about 3 times to run to win. Have you ever heard that?
I have heard that from, yes, in some level. Yes,
Okay.
I have heard that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
So, I
crazy.
mean, I know, but it's kind of, it's almost like this is what you could expect. So I think that it's good if you load yourself with some realistic numbers of what does this look like. It doesn't mean that people don't want you or need you. In fact, haven't we seen a lot of people who run for office? I mean, look at Vivek Ramaswamy. I mean, all of a sudden he's so well known because he ran. Did he win? No, but
he's going to be a
everybody
member
knows
of
who
the
he is.
cabinet.
Right. And like you said, you don't know the kind of connections and relationships that you're now building, people who could help you for those issues that you care so much about. So I think it's absolutely wonderful. Is there anything else that as women we really need to pay attention to, be aware of, maybe consider, ponder, as women are sitting here listening? And maybe not just women, maybe there's a husband, because men watch this show as well. Maybe there's a brother, a dad who says, my daughter, my sister would be phenomenal at this. Are there any other considerations that we should take into account?
I would, one, I think for women generally, and I think for everybody generally, but I wouldn't discount the relationship or the importance of having a mentor in your professional life, whether you're running for office or serving, in your corporate job or whatever.
Mhm.
And I've always had, multiple mentors at a time, and they take different, they come about in different ways. One is, form a relationship like how you and I have had, and hopefully we'll continue on a less formal basis
Yes.
where you get assigned a mentor or mentee, right?
Yeah.
But then there's also mentors who just sort of develop organically. Maybe you work with them and they're a senior member at, within your organization, who, kind of take you under their wing and help you navigate the organization. But also they can be outside of your organization and, just people within the same industry or maybe within your church that you bounce ideas off of, and they're looking out for your best interest and not necessarily your employer's best interest.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of, every job I think I've been introduced to through some sort of a mentor.
Wow,
Um,
that's powerful.
yeah.
Mhm.
Um, so don't, definitely try to like develop relationships with people who um are your senior in some way and can help you understand what maybe is lying ahead for you in a few years and is going to
Yeah.
be your champion. Um, also if you know women who think would be great candidate, tell them, because
Mm.
I think women are more likely to get involved if they're recruited to do it than just
Mm.
jump out there and say, "Hey, what about me?"
Wow.
Um, and so definitely like identify the women in your world who you think would be a great candidate, um, and ask them to run.
That's
And all those, maybe they'll just say no, but maybe they'll say yes.
But they might say yes. I actually think this is wonderful. I know people who've run, who are women who've run just because somebody tapped them on the shoulder and said, you really need to make a run for this. Like, you need to go at it. They may not have necessarily won, but they went for it because somebody said, we think you ought to do it. And then, of course, a lot of times these are people of faith. They prayed about it. And a lot of people may say, well, I prayed about it and still didn't work out. Well, that's okay. If you heard the yes, there's a reason why you had to do it. But I want to go back to the mentor part, because I first of all, I have, here's one of the things that has happened for me personally through your mentorship in this arena, because I have mentors, people that I will sit with and, take them to lunch, etc. And just pull on them, but it's usually for different areas. The political world has been a little different in that through conversations with you, even through going to the Capitol together and talking to the different people that were there at the offices, the chiefs of staff and all the different people that were there, it just in listening and being exposed to conversations kind of lets you into a world that I otherwise would not have necessarily had access to. And so I'm very grateful for that, for you, with you, Beth, that, you have been resourceful, consistent, et cetera. So I'm so with you on that, you need a mentor for sure. People and women and men who have gone before you further than you. And sometimes it may not even be necessarily in the same exact arena. It's just somebody who has business sense, wisdom, et cetera. So I love that. I think that it's so important. Women, if you don't have a mentor, then your growth might be just a little stunted. So maybe it's time to go, what other giftings are encapsulated within me that I need to start breaking open? It just takes one person to say something to you, which goes to if you know a woman who would be a great candidate, tell her. I love that. That is so just on par with for our conversation. It's beautiful. That's empowering. How many times do we hold back some things? We think the things, but we don't always say the things, even if they're pleasant, by the way, Beth, right? Even if we think something positive, something pleasant, it doesn't mean we expose it, say it, etc. So I love that. If you see a woman who you think should run, tell her. Beautiful. Those are the social media quotes for the day. Just FYI, those two. I love those. You did so well. That's so wonderful. Well, is there something else you wanted to add?
Well, before we close, I want to definitely highlight some resources that are available to women who are
Perfect.
trying to get involved. Pink Granite is an organization that is professional organization in Austin that is it's nonpartisan. They definitely are motivated in helping women in and around the Capitol to network. So if you are interested in getting involved, definitely check out their website. They do a great job. And then if, the Republican women's clubs, find one in your neighborhood and go. They, they're great. They're 11,000 strong, 11,000 opinions on any one issue there. But,
Literally.
collectively, they are a powerful group and they know everybody in the state and they look out for one another for sure. And if you're one of them, they will have your back.
There you go. That's wonderful. You do have to stay connected. So she brought up Pink Granite, and I believe their website may be pinkgranite.com. I believe I've visited that website before. Do you know what their website is?
Maybe .org. I'm gonna look it up.
Okay, it could be .org. So definitely
Pinkgranite.org.
.org. So check it out, guys. There's different resources that you'll find under their website. And to add to her advice, just reading, watching videos, watching the news. And by the way, I'm a proponent of watching left and right wing news because you want to be able to weigh the opinions. Sometimes even with the news outlets that I typically agree with, I can find a whole lot that I disagree with. And the reason why I say that is you have to learn to think. You don't want to just become a duplicate of everything that's already going on in politics. You want to learn to think, to argue, to understand when somebody who typically agrees with you is also trying to get you to just think some more how they think. You've got to learn to think for yourself. This is one of those things where I'm constantly just, looking at and going, okay, what else could be true to this question? What else could be true to this statement? What else could be true or not true to this news piece? And so
Mhm.
I think to become a very effective, resourceful woman in anything that you do, you want to be well-rounded and being able to think for yourself. Wouldn't you agree, Beth?
Absolutely. I love talking to people who I disagree with more than I enjoy talking to people who I agree with. Not because I want to argue with them, but I want to hear their perspective. And,
Yeah.
maybe they're going to convince me that their way is the right way. And sometimes they do, but also sometimes I think, okay, well, this is their perspective, you know, and it kind of answers, because a lot of times, you just think, why could anybody ever believe, X is, this is true or not true, until you go talk to them. And then you find out, oh, well, they think that because their worldview is completely different than mine. And it doesn't necessarily change my position, but it does make me more informed. And, my, I have said 100 times, I think the strongest opinion is sometimes the least informed opinion, because
Ooh.
it means you're not considering somebody's perspective
Mhm.
whose world experiences are different than yours.
Yeah.
And if you're not doing that, you're not going to be able to persuade anybody
Yeah.
to your to understand where
Right.
you're coming from, or to agree with you on an issue where they currently
Mm.
disagree. Felt like I was going to say something else, but now I forgot.
Well, I think also it's very important to have these conversations so it can take away the pressure of disagreement. There are some people that you're not going to be able to talk to at all whatsoever if they disagree with you, because they're just not made that way. They
Mhm.
they are like, and regardless of which party they come from, which perspective. But then there's the healthy conversations. I have a really close friend who is she's actually a progressive, and we passionately disagree on a whole lot of things, but we can discuss them very cordially and really look into each other's lives, like why do you et cetera. And she knows I'm not going to agree with certain things and vice versa, and that's okay. But also, then I have another friend who he loves to just kind of challenge me on purpose, just like that's his
Mhm.
morning greeting. And I love it because I tell him, I said, thank you for sharpening my sword today,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
but it takes away from the fear of having these discussions. And if we're women and who are going to run and we really believe what we believe, we should be able to discuss these things without flipping our lid, really. And so
Right.
I think it's absolutely necessary and healthy to do that. So for those women who are watching, you're tuned in with my mentor, political campaign school, Beth Cubriel. She's been heavily involved in politics for the last decade or more, and she's been such a great resource today. Beth, thank you so much for
Thanks for having
being on
me.
the program today. Yes, I think it's been great. I think you've been a resource and a great voice of inspiration for women who need to kind of think about some things that maybe we don't consider, but you take away that pressure from the women who go, maybe not me, but maybe so. So hopefully
Yeah,
today
hopefully,
there will
yes.
be a hopefully there will be a maybe so. And remember what Beth said: if you think there's a woman out there who should run, tell her. Tell her.
Yes, exactly.
Yes. Well,
Well,
my
thank
friends, there
you.
you have it. Yeah, Beth, thank you so much.
Sure, thank
I so
you.
appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. And we have had a very rich discussion today on women. I hope you're encouraged. Don't forget to visit Pink Granite as well. And don't forget to share this broadcast. Beth, thank you so much. And we'll see you again soon.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Sure.
God
You
bless.
too. Bye.